Today we want to discuss one of the missing pieces of event-driven projects. Not all of them, because this pattern is not always necessary, but some of them based on our consulting and working experience. As always, I'm here with Tomek. Hi, Tomek.
Hi.
All right, so first of all, we will introduce you to a problem. So given that you are already familiar with event-driven architecture and you have some events flowing in the system that are processed asynchronously, you may end up with following problem. And in this episode, we'll use slightly different domain. We'll use mucho simplified video processing domain. Pardon my Spanish. No, I can't really speak Spanish. All right, so let's go to the Miro board and let's start with our first frame.
So basically we have like the process, spoiler alert, where we have like video uploaded and we want to publish it, right? And we have a couple of steps before we can publish the video, right? And first is like we have to do the transcoding, let's say, and then generate the thumbnail and extract some metadata. And let's assume that those two pieces, like generating thumbnail and extracting metadata, take some time. They are time-consuming operations, let's say, and we would like to do them in parallel, right? So and we only can publish when we do them in parallel. We only can publish when both of them are finished. So this is where we have some kind of missing, let's say, component that should track the status of generating thumbnail and extracting metadata. And only when both happened, then we can publish the video.
Yes, and as I said, this is a missing piece. So often what we see instead of what Tomek described is that there would be some really strange if statements in this publishing component. That's one of the cases. The other one that I also saw is that the publishing component would be called twice both on those two events. I mean, we didn't work with the video processing domain because that wouldn't make sense at all. But there was something, there was slightly different behavior observable, but we ended up with overriding data. If I recall, I did speak about that on domain-driven design last year, so you can dig the video and check the example out. But the problem that we are dealing here with is that we want to run this one last publishing component when those two things are finished, and then and only then. With current setup, we are kind of in the choreography, pattern or approach, let's say. We'll go towards something different. But first, Tomek, what would be the simplest scenario or simplest implementation that you could provide to fix that?
So I think the simplest one, I mean, it doesn't solve our issue with long-running processes, both long-running processes, but we could do it in, let's say, one after another, right? So we first generate thumbnails, then we extract metadata, and then we publish the video, right? So we are subscribed to, let's say, if we say that metadata is after generating thumbnail, we are subscribing here to this event and here to this event, right? And we know that we do it, let's say, one after another, but then the whole process of publishing video takes longer, right? But because we do one after another, but we could do them like in parallel, right? And that's was our issue, that we wanted to make them parallel. So the whole process, and we say that again, process, is like takes less time than if we do it this way here. But this one would be the simplest one, right? We don't have like any we have this process, but it's like it's not explicit, right? We just do one after another, like in procedural programming, let's say, right?
And you could ask why you care so much. There may be different reasons for that. We may need to do it in the same time because, for example, our core business value is that from the moment of upload, we do every important step, such as transcoding, thumbnail generation, metadata extraction, and so on. And until publishing the video, we would like to do it like Domino's Pizza, right? They deliver the pizza in like 30 minutes, right? That's the core value of their business, or at least it was when it was invented. We would like something similar. So this approach could fix it, but it's no go. We don't want that. The results will be correct, but our business wouldn't be satisfied. So we need something different, especially if we move down to the frame 2, especially if there is another thing that has to happen during this video processing. So, for example, if we say that now we developed the transcription generation, which would make this process even longer if we keep it linearized. But now having it, so this is what we don't want, right? We don't want to linearize this process, but now we have this another component. So there is another event that we would to somehow handle in combination with those remaining two in the orchestration. In my experience, or actually in our experience, because we work together on that problem, this is not really efficient and leads to problems such as overriding data or having incorrect state.
And I think that it's also like, because if you look at it, this process, we want to show this process as some kind of long running process, right? Mm-hmm. So before you upload a video and you publish it, it takes quite a time, let's say, a lot of time mm-hmm. to have everything done, right? The thumbnail, the metadata extracted, and the transcription done, especially if you, for example, are integrated with external systems that do those things for you, right? So it's always better to make them in parallel than synchronously, right? One after another.
Exactly. And by saying external system, Tomek, of course, means OpenAI, which is no external system for everything. Okay, so what is the solution? Of course, Tomek already mentioned that there is a process, which is a keyword, which I didn't use on purpose when in the beginning of this video to grab your attention. But of course, I
like spoilers, so yeah, I was using it quite a lot.
Don't ever talk about videos with Tomek, the movies. So video, we have a video processing process, a business process in this meaning. But in order to solve our issue, we could use a different approach than choreography. We could use orchestration, which can be implemented by using process manager design pattern. And on the frame 3, you can actually see how it would look like. But before we dig into that, I'll just quickly tell you what is the process manager. As a pattern, you can think about that as a routing, and this component process manager, it's a one central component that subscribes to different events. And then based on that events and what is important, the current state, because process manager maintains a state, it makes decision what is the next step. And it wouldn't be so useful if all the processes were sequential, right? As we said, we could linearize the process, it would be sequential. My lamp just died. And so that's one of the thing. And the other one is that if all the steps were determined upfront, right? But we may have different steps based on, different, there's a lot of scenarios, but one simple scenario is that we may be testing a new feature and we want to use a feature flag, right? So we may want to do some process only for test customers, certain customers, because, we wouldn't like to deploy a new feature, untested feature to production, even if it's just a configuration change. So this is when this pattern gets useful. And let's get to this frame and see what happens there.
Okay, so first we like upload the video, right? So then we have the state and of the process manager, which says that the video was uploaded. And then we say to transcode the video, so the state changes. So we have like transcoded.
Just one thing is that the process manager is telling the next step in the line that now it's your turn, transcode the video. But the process manager doesn't do it doesn't do it inside it itself, right? It just delegates the job. And then as Tomek mentioned, once the job is done, let's mark it here with this very beautiful line. Then we get an event which updates the state and says transcoded is done.
Yeah, so basically the responsibility of the process manager, let's say, is just tracking the progress of the process and executing next steps, right? It tracks the state, it knows what should be done after what happened, right? So we know that the video was transcoded. Now let's do three things, right? So generate thumbnail, extract metadata, generate transcription. And then those can happen in different, let's say, order, but they always, this process manager is subscribed to all those three events, right? And updates the state accordingly based on what event was processed when, right? It doesn't, for us, from our perspective, it's a high-level perspective, it doesn't matter which one was in which order got to the process manager. Process manager just keeps the tracking of those, of the state and says, okay, here, when I have three of them, so I have the thumbnail, metadata extracted and transcripted, I can say, publish. Now I'm responsible for keeping, let's say, information about what should happen before I can publish the video, right? And here we have the state, which says that it's uploaded, transcoded, and as I said, generated, extracted, and transcripted. Then all done, we can publish the video, right?
Yeah, so it beats the state and checks. There's just a simple if statement checking if every flag is set to true, and then it dispatches the last operation, the last action, the last command actually when we talk about dispatching, which finally leads to publishing the video. And then depending if that's interesting for the process itself or not, to capture the state of the video published, it can do it, but it's not necessary, right?
I think, I mean, when we are talking about it, I think we can mention now here also that it's okay. Here we have like the example of the process that's, let's say, we were saying about what that we want to somehow make few things at the same time, right? With the generation, extract, metadata, and transcription. But it's also sometimes missing the process manager itself is also sometimes missing because, and should be introduced when we say about the process, business processes, right? It's like, because they are, in general, sometimes they are long running and they have different, let's say, paths, right? And process manager also can like, protect you or make you or define the paths of the process, right? I think we had in one project also as well, like when we were introducing the new feature. So in the process manager, we had like feature toggle that said that for those users, especially for those users, or when we wanted to enable the feature, this process should be longer, let's say, right? And the process manager was the place that says that we can, extend the process, or even process manager can, let's say, sometimes trigger some sub processes, right? And depends on some conditions.
Yeah, exactly. It may contain multiple sub processes, which it may be just starting, or maybe it may be interacting with, meaning that it will listen for the events coming from the process managers.
And I just yes, sorry, Łukasz. But it also reminds me that why I think sometimes the process managers, they are like described in books in the context of integrating bounded contexts, right?
Mhm.
Because if you have different bounded contexts, the place where you want to track the process between those bounded contexts is process manager, right? As an external, let's say, external component piece that tracks the process progress. And also it makes sense, right? Because if you have it between the bounded contexts, then you don't keep the state that you shouldn't in one of the bounded contexts, right?
Mhm.
Because you could do it like, you could somehow do it without the process manager as a separate component, but then you would mess up some data from different bounded contexts, for example, right?
Mhm.
So if you are reading about process managers, process managers, long-running processes, or sometimes they are also called saga.
Which is not entirely correct.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like this because it's there's a different pattern for that as well, called the same name. Yeah.
If you get 2 likes on the for this video, we'll record a video about Saga.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we will. But as I said, if you read about process managers, you will quite often see them in the context of integrating different bounded contexts.
Mhm.
Sorry for this
Well-
monologue here now, but
No, it's fine,
It's
fine.
like- yeah.
And it's also, as we mentioned, to solve this particular problem where you need to wait for a couple of things to actually happen, or maybe you need a process that is not always working in the same way. Doesn't always contain the same steps, right? And the steps may differ because you may want to test something with the feature flag, but also there may be different steps for different customers, right? One customer may want to have this additional step, the other one may not. Or maybe if you're thinking, say, e-commerce, you may have the different step of shipping based on what you're actually shipping, right? There may be a different step for shipping like electronic goods such as PDFs. It would be different than shipping like, I don't know, actual physical book.
Exactly. And I think without the process manager, we, as Łukasz said at the beginning, we would be able to do it, but then we would have some kind of different and strange if statements, for example, or responsibilities kept in some kind of handlers, for example,
Yeah.
right here or here, for example, or
Yeah.
even here, right?
There is that risk that those if statements which could be encapsulated in the process manager would be just spread all over
Exactly.
different handlers, and then each change would force you to do shotgun surgery, which we talked about in the video about value objects. Okay, but as always, it's not that process managers is a silver bullet, because there are a couple of potential issues with the process managers, because basically you could model everything as a process manager, but because even if you have like event handler that's listening for event, there could be a process manager in between. But sometimes it doesn't make sense. It's just better if there's just one action that has to be done. You don't need this central processing unit, central routing unit with state. You may just have event handler. This is still fine. And the reason is that if you do it everything that way, the process managers may quickly become a performance bottleneck, right? Especially if there is too much happening in the single process manager. So you have to watch out for that. Another problem is that the process manager may become single point of failure, especially if you are not using, if you're using more like process manager as an external single component, say that would be, I don't know, some AWS Lambda function, right? That is only triggered when some certain event happen. If it fails and it's not able to dispatch the commands and trigger another operations, then the entire process would be stopped. There's probably more problems.
I think from my point of view, I can, in general, I can agree about both of them. I mean, about the first one, I just I'm thinking now whether if we have like if they are like small, still small. Small pieces, let's say those process managers, and they just operate on a few events, and they are like not so. Let's say it's like with the long event streams, right? If we keep them long, very long, yeah, you can have the, let's say, performance issues. But if you like keep them short, and the process managers are also, let's say, short, because they just are subscribed to a couple of events, and they just delegate the work to another components. I think that there will be no performance issues, right? And also because they in general they will not have much logic. They will just have this like, if something happened, then do this, and if something happened, then do this, and if all of that happened, do this. Let's say. So there is no performance issues. Also, you have to be careful only to not move some kind of business logic from your aggregates, let's say, to your process managers, right?
Please don't.
And please don't. And I totally agree with the second point, with the single point of view. Yeah, that may happen, right? Especially, for example, if you also have like microservices architecture, where you have some kind of single microservice that does those that has those process managers that connect all those bounded contexts, right, and all different components, right? Then it might be kind of single point of failure, right here.
So as always, just analyze if you really need the pattern. Think about what problem you're trying to solve, and then if the pattern is necessary, apply the pattern, but don't do it for the sake of just applying the pattern to have it in your CV.
But in general, we as we said on the beginning, we quite often see the lack of this pattern, right? In projects, let's say.
Yes, especially in event-driven projects, it's often there's this brutal attempt to solve it by just having many event handlers. By saying solving it, I mean the problem that we discussed initially. So syncing the choreographed events to do something, in this case, publishing a video, which ends up brutally. So it's good to know another ways. And I guess that's it for today.
Yep.
Thank you for watching. See you next time.
See ya. Bye.